The world hungers. The world hungers for a day without hunger. Younger people starving for a change in the situation.
We are people who are poor, leading a campaign to raise social assistance rates. And we are meeting today with frontline workers and with high school students to talk about the reality of poverty in Ontario. We've learned over the course of the Put Food in the Budget campaign that hundreds of thousands of people are hungry at every stage of life in Ontario because their income is too low. The overriding message from these stories is that people in Ontario can now literally be hungry for life.
The current rates for social assistance and the current minimum wage in Ontario ensure that people in Ontario with low incomes will starve. Hunger is only a symptom. The cause of hunger is poverty. Ontario needs a reduction strategy that includes the following: raise social assistance rates to levels that ensure a life of health and dignity, raise the minimum wage to $14 an hour, invest in public services such as housing, education, childcare, transit, and community support services that benefit everyone. Raise taxes on corporations and the very wealthy.
Children have a right to standards of living that is good enough to meet their physical and mental needs. Government should help families and guardians who cannot afford to provide this, particularly with regards to food, clothing, and housing. So that is a right. I shortly realized that if it wasn't for that child care center that I was working at, not a lot of children would be eating that day. We have created edible gardens where children have seen the transformation from seeds to plants to our kitchen tables. I've practiced in a variety of settings across the province. In each one of these roles, I've witnessed firsthand the impacts that poverty and hunger can have on health. I heard mothers describe that they use carnation milk in their babies' bottles because the cost of formula was simply too high. She was folate deficient, vitamin C deficient, vitamin B12 deficient, and iron deficient as a result of such poor nutrition. My friend and her colleagues included a food box in their family practice that was in the waiting room and wasn't being used at all. They moved the box to a hallway where individuals could take items more privately, and they now struggle to keep that box full.
Alfred is very self-conscious about his food situation. He was embarrassed for other students to see that he had not brought lunch, and when he did, it was sometimes just bread and butter. As a member of ETT, I've been working with other like-minded colleagues who have mailed letters to our trustees, members of provincial parliament, and member of parliament. We have organized community town halls, donated thousands of dollars to grassroots initiatives. We have organized rallies and flash mobs to bring attention to the fact that ending child poverty in Canada is directly connected to closing the economic gap between the wealthy and the rest of us.
If I was eating leftovers, like meat and rice in particular, he could hardly take his eyes off my fork. Toronto education workers are politically active, supporting only those politicians who share our values. We lobby government for good, well-paying jobs that include health benefits.
In a province that boasts the highest tuition fees in all of Canada, students are shouldering mortgage-sized debts, juggling part-time jobs, full-time studies, and personal obligations. It's time that we call this trend for what it is. It's a crisis. Students are uniting across the province to demand the progressive reduction of tuition fees so no one is ever faced with the choice of buying textbooks or buying lunch.
Getting a job is not a way out of poverty. The people get off social assistance and get in the poverty-wage job, and they can never get out of poverty. So that's a vicious cycle right happening now.
He became extremely depressed, and he lost his job, his home, and his health. Isaac now has to rely on social assistance to help him. Now with only a meager income to support him, Isaac's weight dropped drastically, and his health deteriorated because he could no longer afford healthy food. At the stop, we strive to build the capacity of individuals and community as a whole to be agents of positive change.
She's a senior, 77 years of age, who owns her own home and is on the Canada Pension Plan, but finds it impossible to make ends meet without working at a part-time job for about 15 hours a week for minimum wage. Sometimes she will come to the local food pantry, but feels bad and often expresses but she shouldn't be relying on it, as she believes other younger families with children need help more.
The stories that we have heard today illustrate conclusively that poverty in Ontario is systematic and that it requires serious attention from the Government of Ontario and from all political parties in Ontario.
So you'll notice that there are some questions on that sheet. So what we're going to ask you to do is we're going to have some discussion around those, and after we have the discussion, each group will do some report back. I can tell from the tenor and the tone of the ongoing side conversations that you guys have gone quite into depth on the 3 questions.
Basically, the first main thing we came up with was like us humans shouldn't have to fight for the right to eat. It's like it's not a privilege. It's like something we must do. So basically, it's the message we got was we should all have the equal right to eat, and no one should be treated less or more depending on your budget rate.
One of the main topics that came up was how poverty nowadays kind of seems normal, how we we're not bothered by it, how we can go on the subways and see people asking for money, don't bother to really ask why, the reasons behind it and such.
Premier Wynn's proposed welfare reforms are inadequate. Premier Wynn must put food in the budget by raising social assistance rates and raising the minimum wage to ensure people have enough money to buy healthy food without relying on food banks.
To leave the special diet in place and to increase by $100 is a very expensive proposition. And I'll be honest with you, I would love to be able to increase all of those rates. I would love to have a housing allowance that was more reasonable.
Hungry for Life has 2 meanings. We all want our young people to thrive and to be hopeful about the future. We want them to be hungry for life. We don't want them to feel hopeless or to fear the future. Nelson Mandela said, "Overcoming poverty is not a task of charity, it is an act of justice." Like slavery and apartheid, poverty is not natural, it is man-made, and it can be overcome and eradicated by the actions of human beings. We must act together to end poverty.
When a child coats bread with margarine daily to make lunch, munches in silent dismay, or plucks needs from others' plates, debates on the propriety of policy produce calls sure to fall on empty bellies. We fool no one if we think somehow it's due to poor life choices. Voices from across the full spectrum of experience tell us this is happening with alarming regularity. Prosperity, a new form of barbarity. Parity, a rarity that's become a peculiarity. Now who has the temerity to say that people bring it onto themselves when the shelves of our compassion lay bare when exposed to light? Deranged is a system that forces the elderly to feel trapped, wrapped in the constraints fixed incomes can create. Give our people their due for being resilient in the face of such pain. String what they can together to keep lights on and heat burning, churning doubt they are forced to take all the way to the bank where they withdraw food, not dollars. Collars of despair tight around necks, and we are starving for the powers that be to see their own humanity in the reflection of poverty. Sense the suffering as familiar and not dismiss it as strange, and show the rest of the world they too hunger for change.